All right. It's June 15th, 2025. Jon Elmer is here. I told you guys that I would be back with the least surprising surprise guest, and so probably many of you are unsurprised that John is here. Hey, John.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
John, people in my comments also told me that Electronic Intifada is going on hiatus for 2 weeks.
The
Well planned,
timing on
guys.
that,
Well
eh?
planned. Well played and well planned. So I don't
You
know. People
you planned God laughs.
Yeah, people will come. People will come to the sit rep, I guess. We'll have to have another one between now and when you guys come back online.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to talk about Iran, but there are other things going on. The war in Gaza is still going on. The Israelis are still attacking the West Bank. And I just wanted to say, like, in addition to Tulkarm and Jenin, I read that the Israelis are storming Nablus with the largest attack in years on the 10th of June, and there was an explosive device by the resistance there. Other explosive devices in Jenin too. So there's active fighting in the West Bank too. Um, while all of this is going on, while Israel is fighting Iran, they are also continuously invading the West Bank, killing freed prisoners, torturing the prisoners they have, starving people in Gaza. Um, Gaza, the Abu Shabab gang looting aid is the story that I think is like developing, and the GHF system is now just in place now, right? It's entrenched. This is how people are getting aid now.
It's a large part of it for sure. There is some back channel happening with the World Food Program. But yeah, the this is what Israel wants. They want to dismantle the aid distribution system in the Gaza Strip that functions very well. It has a high level of dignity for the people who are receiving the aid. Who don't want to receive aid. And if they had open borders and were able to function like a normal state, would not need aid. But as it is, there's hundreds, like more than 400, even at the worst point of the genocide, there was more than 400 aid distribution points. And people get like a message on their phones that tell them when to come. There's no lineups, there's no, it's you don't have to be the fittest person in your neighborhood who can sprint, from the 2 kilometers from where the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distribution point is to the closest place that people are allowed. And then when they open the site, it's basically a sprint to get to an insufficient amount of aid for the people that are there. And it just means that it's the same people get the aid. Um, and that's been the goal. Like that is the genocidal goal of Israel really all along. If we remember back when they went at the United Nations very early in
Yeah.
this genocide. And the goal was to separate and, well, it was to accuse the UN of participating in the October 7th special forces raid that happened in order to dismantle this organization that really is the sort of municipal government really
Mhm.
in Palestine. It's the school teachers, it's the schools, it's the medical clinics, it's the dignified distribution of aid and emergency funds. It's distributed by Palestinians who know the people in their communities who are able to help certain families that are in particular moments of greater need than others. It functions in a was a something that was an important part of Palestinian society, and that's why it's been dismantled. And the goal is to dismantle it. And they use this Yasser Abu Shabab character, who has been for the last year plus been one of the major looters of the aid, which is what Israel was doing to destroy the aid network before was to have the aid be looted. And then the
Mhm.
aid gets put on the black market at enormous prices. And so that was a constant undermining of the aid distribution network. And now him and his little gang, which like numbers like a few hundred at most, gets full Israeli support to live inside the cleansed, to use their word, Rafah, where no human movement is allowed. Nobody is there, but they're allowed to have this little fiefdom there where they intercept the aid trucks that come from Kerem Shalom on the Egyptian border. There's no way
Mhm.
to get through Rafah without going through this looters valley. He takes the aid. He has warehouses. He has forklifts. He has full, Israeli backing. And whenever Hamas security intervenes, they're bombed, they're killed. And that's been happening since we've been doing sit reps. They've been killing the security of the aid um, in this sort of multi-pronged approach the
Yeah,
to dismantle the most important aspects of life in Gaza: education, healthcare, food food distribution, destroying industrial base, commercial base,
agriculture.
agriculture. Which the
Um,
agriculture was an important thing because
Absolutely.
they had self-sustaining agriculture that had been built up throughout the siege, um, as much as could be possible, because of course they're not allowed to export anything, and all of Israel's um, fruits and vegetables are all flooded into the like rotten, flooded into the Gaza market. But yeah, this is just part of the genocide, but it's a really devastating part. And I don't think that Yasser Abu Shabab's going to last very long. As soon as he's out of, his own family has disowned him, his
Yeah,
tribe has disowned him. The sort of mechanisms from Israel's point of view, the mechanisms of success of this guy don't exist, right? He's not one of the clans or the
right.
tribes that would ally with Israel. His very important clan has disowned him, as has all of the other people who have come out and had their faces shown as being part of this. Their families immediately disown them because they're like collaborators of the highest order, or the
So,
lowest order, maybe.
um, so there's resistance though, which I guess you're not going to get to do this week, but I
It's
read about
unclear. It's
a s-
unclear for this week.
I read about a sniper operation on June 11th, Khan Yunis. Yes, yes, Dean 105 on a Merkava in Khan Yunis. And then we could talk about the 3 day internet blackout, but it appears to be back. They have the internet again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, unbelievable, epic story of Palestinians getting, their infrastructure running as the Israelis are trying to destroy it. The Israelis targeted the fiber route of the main trunk, I guess, of the internet, and the Palestinians got it back
Yeah. Under very, very risky.
under fire.
Although I do think that the Israelis like to have that system up. That the
Uh,
blackout didn't benefit them. I
it
think
didn't
they,
pan out the way they thought.
yeah. Well, not originally. Remember when the war started, the ground war
Hmm.
started with a blackout.
Hmm.
And that didn't, we were very concerned at the time that that was going to be a permanent condition. But I think they get a lot of signals intelligence from the phone systems.
Hmm.
Although the Israelis were very clear that they were not going to help getting this back up and running, but the Palestinians managed to do that. But yeah, the resistance in Gaza has been at a tempo that, like, again, if you just like, I keep a log. I've kept it all
Yeah.
throughout the war. Today says day 618, ground war day 532. If you flip back through, like, you wouldn't be able to tell the the capacity of the resistance in any way by
Mm,
seeing like a trail off of the operations. The ground war started in Khan Yunis, and immediately, like just today alone, there's half a dozen qualitative operations in Khan Yunis. Like the day before, I think we did. When did I do a show last? On Thursday, there was 30 operations in the week between shows, and then this week there's multiple every day. So yeah, and I think that ultimately we're going to get to Iran, but I think that the failure in Gaza is the root of all of the secondary knock-on wars that Israel has
yeah.
fought. Has been if it, according to Israel's plan, the war was going to last for a few months. They were going to destroy and conquer, and they haven't. And that's when it switched to decapitation.
You know, it's interesting though, because that's a rather deep question in the sense that Israel also decides the conditions for when to stop. And they started this open-ended war, which presumably they could stop anytime and have stopped twice. And so on the one hand, it's like it's gone on 618 days and Israel hasn't had a victory in those 618 days. On the other hand, it's gone on 618 days, all every day of which the Israelis could have declared it was over. So there's something truly insane about what they're doing.
But they would
And
have failed in all of their main war goals. Return the captives through violence, failed. Destroy Qassam, clearly failed. Destroy the government. That's failed, but the Palestinians are willing to
it's true,
change
but
their
are
government.
these really well-formulated goals? Destroy the government, destroy Hamas? Like what does that mean? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we 618 days we can say that we know what it means and it failed, but I think originally I do think the Israelis thought that they were going to win the war in some period of months.
And then end up resettling, reoccupy. Like this is the Daniela Weiss plan. That was their that was their idea. Go and
Well,
take back those.
that they would get their captives back. I don't know about the occupation part, because that would take defeating the resistance, which was just never.
But did they think they could do that?
I mean, early in the war, they were talking about months, several. They said several months,
Mhm.
and I think even us, there was some part of us that thought there was
No,
definitely a large part of us that didn't think we'd be sitting here at day 618.
no.
But yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I kind of remember those days. But like the they were never you just said this, they were never gonna beat the resistance. And so like right now they're they're clearly trying to just exterminate everybody in Gaza because that's
Yeah, because they can't defeat the fighters.
and so is that like yeah, I mean I don't know. These are things we've always seen and we've never been under those delusions that they've had. We always thought that this was going to end the way that it ended the two times that it ended.
Yeah.
And now I don't know anymore. I don't know if there's going to be a third ceasefire, especially now with what's going on between Israel and Iran. Like, well, what are they? Apparently, there's the mediators have tried to approach Iran to start a negotiation, and Iran has said no. I read that somewhere today that Iran said no, we're not interested in a ceasefire negotiation with Israel right now. So, is Israel ceasefire because part of like what makes a state is not it's not just your ability to drop bombs on drop foreign supplied bombs on civilian populations. You also should have the ability to make a treaty and stick to it. That's also part of being a state. And that is like a function of the state that Israel doesn't seem to have anymore.
No, and neither does the United States,
And neither
clearly.
does the United
I mean, if
States.
you just watch the way Trump's talking about Iran, like he clearly doesn't, there's no way you can have, I mean, from Iran's perspective, like I don't know how they could say anything but that right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're not dealing with people who are credible partners in any kind of um, yeah. So, uh, yeah, are we going in order though? So we're still in the West Bank because in
No,
the
no,
West
we're in
Bank
Gaza.
they
No, but
we,
yeah,
we
you
went to
went.
Gaza. Okay,
We
because
went to
there was
Gaza, but yeah,
in Gaza they were cheering the missiles, right? I mean, you
yeah,
saw some of that footage.
I
They were
did. Yeah.
cheering within the prisons, and the Israeli prison service raided the prisons today and beat on people that were cheering the missiles. You can hear kids in Gaza cheering the missiles. I mean, I think that there's a certain amount of like, where has this been for people in Gaza? Which, you know,
Yeah.
this entire war, this entire genocide, we have never seen what we have seen in the last 3 days in Tel Aviv,
Mm-hmm.
with buildings in Tel Aviv being dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the like taken off the battlefield a number of fighting forces that had the capacity to do that and didn't. And I think that we're finally seeing it now, but at a huge cost for Iran. The
Well, I mean, yeah, this is not a bad time to talk about this because I kept thinking as I've been watching the Haifa port struck, the
Yeah,
Haifa oil
just before we
refinery.
came on air, it was hit again.
Yeah, and the Haifa oil refinery and the electrical plant in Haifa apparently was hit. And every time they hit one of these targets, I think of that Hudhud video and I think of the speech, the 2012 speech by Nasrallah,
Yeah,
where he announced that they were going to hit all these things,
yeah,
and then they didn't do it.
they
And
didn't do it.
Syria also had these incredible abilities that the Israelis destroyed just sitting in the field after the regime change there. So it was such a yeah, it's like there has been a use it or lose it dynamic to the axis of resistance arsenals. So this is the first time, well, not the first, because Yemen is also launching a they've been launching a missile a day,
Yeah,
every single day,
yeah,
as far as I can tell.
yeah.
Al Houthi made a speech on the 12th, um, where he said there were between the 5th to the 12th, there were 11 missiles and drones that week. So that's the tempo they're going for.
Yeah, that's actually the least number in the previous, like since the war with the Americans in the Red Sea ended, their tempo has been even greater than that of the
Hmm.
past week. Um, so yeah, and then they coordinated. The Yemeni armed forces released a statement yesterday with their ballistic missile attack, multiple ballistic missile attacks, not just a single missile,
Hmm.
that said it was coordinated with Iran.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's funny because Iran sends like maybe 100, and then Ansarallah sends one more. Like, there's one more,
yeah,
and one more. But it's yeah, okay, let's go to Iran.
all
So I
right.
want to do some things that I didn't get to do last night. One of the thing is like what did you make of the June 9th announcement of the leak or of the intelligence trove of documents that they kind of started rolling out the week before the attack? And I mean, they said we have all this information on the nuclear sites and all this information about their spy networks. They revealed that the International Atomic Energy Agency had been working with Israel to help Israel assassinate Iranian scientists and destroy, um, sabotage and these things. It's interesting to me because that timing is pretty coincidental that Iran had this or announced this intelligence coup, and 4 days later, the Israelis decided they had to go. They had to go with this attack.
Yeah, I mean, Trump said today that they had a 60-day warning and that Israel hit on the 61st day.
I don't know what
But
that.
Israel definitely telegraphed that
Mm-hmm.
strike. I went back to because I started an Iran log,
Of course you did.
and to do that, I started it on the day of the attack. But as I like to do, go back to the couple days before and see what breadcrumbs you find. And this case, because Israel's always talking, like that,
Yeah,
you tune
exactly.
it out, right? You
Yeah.
tune it out. But when it happened, then you can go back with the 2020 hindsight and look at these. They really telegraphed this operation all the way down to telling their people in Israel on the day before that there was going to be new home front command,
Mm,
like you had, what are they called, like directives. um and
mm,
it's just they managed to do to the IRGC what they did to Hezbollah, and it was just really incredible to watch
the whole
how
thing happened again.
that could happen again, and to hit such senior people and to hit them in a way that it was reminiscent of the Hezbollah, where it was like the
Hmm.
Hezbollah assassinations led the Radwan force to meet, and then they met at a predictable place, and they all got wiped out. That
Hmm.
same thing happened with the IRGC. They went to the general staff building after the first assassinations, and then were hit in the general staff building in the room that Israel expected them to meet into. And I just I don't know. The
Well,
depth of that intelligence, like there's more to this story about Hezbollah and Iran that I imagine is something you learn in the future. But the intelligence penetration is just unbelievable to watch. And then to have it, trickle out over those next couple hours that they had
yeah.
gotten
I
so.
mean, the despair of those hours, and you and I were, of course, chatting in those hours, but like the that feeling of like, here we go again, and Israel seemed to have the initiative, and Israel seemed to just be going from one thing to the next, and assassinations and nuclear sites hit, and all of these things being struck.
And it didn't look like they changed anything up because it kept happening. And that's the thing that I could never understand about Hezbollah, about how it continued to happen to Hezbollah.
Hmm.
That there doesn't seem to be a plan B. That they, first of all, that they had no idea it was coming. I mean, I suppose that's easy to say in retrospect. You should have seen it coming. Um, but just to meet
Predictable.
in all the predictable places, and that Israel is a demented
Yeah.
state that is absolutely running amok. And
Well, for me, it was more like technical issues. I was so confused about how you can't, you couldn't see it coming from 1,500 kilometers away. But of course, there were already teams inside, and these drone teams that were already inside Iran and from the Iraq border. And so there was a range of tricky and complicated things that they did, um, that that were, they're not like you're looking over the horizon, but the attack is coming from already inside the borders. But I think what Hezbollah managed to do in terms of repelling the invasion, in spite of all of those horrific days from the pager attack to the assassination of Nasrallah, that was a huge turnaround. pretty epic story of how they turned things around. And
Absolutely.
Iran turned things around within half a day. So that was also like, I think we can join the despair and the horror that Israel was able to achieve surprise after 45 years of telegraphing an attack. But then a 12-hour turnaround to get the initiative back is also very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways not even. Didn't even take that long. And
Yeah.
with Hezbollah, the ability to repel the ground invasion after that, which yeah, I think Israel thought would be a lot easier and ended
Hmm.
up that they had to pretend like they weren't even going to do a full invasion.
Hmm.
Um, that the capabilities of the resistance um, I think that that's the thing that's frustrating in a lot of ways is that that capability was on display. And so the question is,
Yeah.
why is it not now? And then now in this moment where Iran is actually fighting the war that they had all these alliances
Yeah.
to fight with, and now they're fighting it alone,
Yeah.
is I think, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know about despair, but it's a devastating loss of leadership, like generational leadership.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the Qassam Brigade's statement, but they came out with a statement today that said that we praise the pivotal and historic role played by these senior commanders and their comrades in supporting the Palestinian cause and its resistance over decades. Their steadfast stance, which will be inscribed with letters of light in history, was the most was most recently manifested in the Battle of the Al-Aqsa flood operation. Despite knowing this, overt and immense support would come at a high cost paid in blood and sacrifice. The Iranians never wavered and were finally sealed with martyrdom at the hands of the enemies of the Ummah. So, you know, these were
Yeah.
very important leaders. They were not symbolic, uh, figureheads. They really did dig deep into the top
Hmm.
echelon um, of the IRGC. There's no question about it. But Iran is a massive state. The military is massive. It's able to replace its leaders quickly, which it did, and struck back at Tel Aviv and hit Israel in a way that they've never seen before. And Israel was very relatively, I mean, the mayors of the cities that got wasted were very forthcoming about the fact that they'd never seen anything like it. And and it wasn't actually that the attacks of the last 3 days that Iran have undertaken are very sustainable.
Yeah. That's
There's
right.
something that can happen for many, many weeks. It was not like all
It
of
was.
their
Yeah.
capacity at one moment and you caught the Israelis. This is a very repeatable number.
Hmm.
These ballistic missile barrages of 40 to 60 missiles,
Hmm.
this is very sustainable for Iran for quite a long time. And the question is it sustainable for Israel? These are the questions that this is the unprecedented nature of this battle is that we don't know how many interceptors. Just before we came on air, I was watching the last barrage over Tel Aviv and they're firing. It's got to be hundreds of
Hmm.
interceptors.
Hmm. The Israeli philosophy on ammunition use is profligate, to say the least. It is based on
Billions of
expenditure.
dollars in 3 days,
Yeah.
billions of dollars, and weapons that, yeah, I don't know. And the Israelis are basically, they have shut their entire society down. This is not a blockade of the airport that disrupts things. Their entire society is shut down. There's no school, there's no work. It's just bomb shelters and waiting till the next bomb shelter. People have moved the military. There's footage of the military moving immediately into hospitals underground. They're doing all the things that they accuse the Palestinians of doing, which the Palestinians did not do. But their military, the Israeli military command, all went underground, all surrounded by civilians. Um,
Well, I mean, and Netanyahu is surrounded by Greek civilians. He doesn't even want to use Israeli civilians as his human shields.
yeah, so
Can you
um,
imagine like the contrast between Netanyahu and Sinwar? Like Sinwar's got a vest and a rifle, and he's fighting the Israelis.
on the most dangerous piece of land on earth at that
And
time.
and Netanyahu orders the bombing of yet another country, and then goes to Greece and hangs out in Greece.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's
and
not even.
also just after 618 days, the fact that there's we talk about Yasser Abu Shabab, but like there's not really collaborators in
Yeah,
Gaza. Like
yeah.
that thing that we talked about Sinwar 150 days into the war about their counterintelligence,
Hmm.
that lasted throughout the entire war
Yeah.
and remains even while people are starving, it remains unbroken. And for sure, Israel had some successful assassinations
Hmm.
that were presumably significantly based on American
Signal.
intelligence capabilities. Um, but it didn't change the resistance ability to fight. And the same could be said for Hezbollah. It didn't, those devastating losses didn't stop the fighters on the ground, who I just can imagine right now must be just itching to get in this fight.
Yeah, yeah. And that I'm sure the Israelis are worried about it. And it does, it does make me wonder what the what the trigger for that would be. But these are
Yeah,
calculations that are beyond us. Now, I don't know if you've seen the Israeli government apparently, Haaretz reports that the Israeli government is telling airlines not to let Israelis leave even when the airports are functioning. Have you seen that story?
yeah, I saw that. I didn't.
You
I
don't know what
re-
to make of it?
yeah, I
They're
didn't.
basically holding the Israeli population hostage. I think they're trying to prevent a mass exodus from Israel. It's wild. If it means what I think it means.
Well, we're gonna find out because
Oh, are we?
the 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 Israelis aren't going to be able to put up with the thing that they're being forced to put up with right now. They've never.
What choice do they have?
They would leave
Oh,
if
I see. I see.
yeah,
Well,
that
they're
they would
yeah, they're
leave.
not going to be allowed to leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Iran, so like Iran, this is the big one for Iran too, right? Like Iran's existence as a state is at stake, and they are going to try to destroy Iran, and they're probably gonna try to assassinate the Ayatollah, and they've said that, right? And I don't know, they might use nuclear weapons. They supposedly have them, right? They've been uh so these are all like really um world-changing events that are in the balance right now. It's not like a little exchange of
No.
conventional weapons that we're
No,
seeing.
the Israeli military said this, the Air Force came out on the first night and said this is not an operation. This is a planned war.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And when you look at the, like, yeah, maybe the Ayatollah is a target, but like the IRGC commander in chief got hit, the aerospace chief, military intelligence, and his deputy, the chief of staff, the Quds Force commander, the air defense commander, the drone force commander,
Yeah.
central command commander, general staff building hit, top nuclear scientist, top advisor to the Ayatollah, negotiators,
Yeah.
a dozen other nuclear scientists, top nuclear scientists in the program. I would say if Iran did not see this as existential, that they're missing the point on that list of. targets.
But like,
That's a decapitation list that you're trying to
yeah. So
collapse a
they
state.
don't assassinate, right? Like Hezbollah launched that drone at Netanyahu's house that didn't that tapped on the window a little bit, but they don't do it in return, and it that's another kind of mystery is like why I guess they don't see it as as a valid or a worthwhile tactic, but you know, I quoted a lot from this squirrel. I don't know if you know Zai Squirrel on Twitter, but Zai Squirrel is you know was being celebrated yesterday as a prophet because their whole point was all of the Trump Netanyahu supposed controversies are all fake, and I think that's a really important thing to hold
Yes.
to because now they're doing it again. They're saying Israel wanted to kill the Ayatollah and Trump vetoed it.
Yeah.
And so many of these, Trump wants a ceasefire, they didn't, blah, 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 blah. It's all fake. And Zy Squirrel, I think, really importantly says that. And the other thing that Zy Squirrel is really upset about is um, the fact that they don't do assassinations back. And Zy Squirrel's saying like they kill all of your leadership and you blow up some buildings. Like, of course they're gonna keep killing your leadership. They're not suffering for they have a positive association with killing your leadership. So um I don't know,
I don't
like
know what the answer is to that. I don't think that I can give you a good answer for why Hezbollah didn't attack Tel Aviv when
yeah.
Beirut was attacked like they said they would.
It
And
has to
like
be it
the
has to be that
Israelis
they thought
believed.
yeah.
The
Eh,
Israelis believed they would, and that was
yeah.
a significant deterrence that kept Israel
Yeah.
from doing the things that it's doing right now
Yeah.
and did back in September when it wiped out their leadership.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
I don't know.
I mean I think it is hope, It's always this hope that the West is gonna follow their word this time. And like you can avoid this war if you just avoid it. And that's probably why Iran waited too, and that's why Hezbollah waits. And like some military analysts have made this point that it is only deterrence. It's not, you can't really defend against a nation state that's determined on assassination. You can only threaten them with
Yeah.
paying them back in their own
And
coin.
they're backed by the largest military in the world that is
Yeah.
already so integrated that like even this idea that Trump is like trying to decide whether to join the war
Yeah.
with it's
Come on.
it just that's just an unbelievable way of talking about something that you are so deeply integrated into. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I think yeah. I mean, I don't know. For all these years, we always said, like if this were to happen to Iran, Iran has the ability to hit,
Mm.
like just some things I threw down on paper before our little meeting here. Like there's 63 US bases in the
Yeah.
region. They're mostly undefended, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
They uh, they control the world's oil.
Hmm.
To close the Strait of Hormuz would I heard an economist on Al Jazeera just a couple hours ago say that it would immediately double
The price.
fuel prices. Like the consumer level fuel prices would double um, overnight if that strait were to be closed, even though it only represents like 20% of the world's
Hmm.
oil or the yeah. But I don't see like those seem like suicidal operations at this point. I don't think
For
attacking the
Iran or for
yeah for
yeah.
Iran.
Yeah, but isn't it also suicidal to just wait for decapitation?
Well, I think that the targeting of these first 3 days, I think, have been in. have been impressive. The
Hmm.
targets are infrastructure. They're matching target for target. They hit
Like the gas for gas.
the gas for gas,
But they're not
like
matching the assassination for assassination. And
yeah.
that's the
Well, they're all under the Israelis are all underground, like well underground. The Israelis took precautions against assassinations,
because they're obsessed with assassinations. Yeah.
and it's just very difficult for me.
Did you see the nuclear scientist, one of them, Feridun Abbasi? And he's doing this interview just a couple days before. And at one point they said, "Are you afraid of being assassinated?" And he says something like, we just live normally. I'm old now. It's gonna have to be for the younger generation anyway. I'm just here doing things like talking to you." So he
Yeah,
was
they built the
very,
programs.
yeah,
That's the thing is they're not symbolic heads. They're the people who built the aerospace chief. He built that program,
yeah.
that whole missile capability that we're presumably going to continue to see. The nuclear scientists is I heard I saw somewhere that the number is like 25,000 people in their program,
Hmm.
like experts,
Yeah, I mean
scientists, engineers in their program. So you're talking 14 out
yeah.
of that.
And it
Um,
is like scientific leadership especially is not like a hierarchy like a military command, right? It's, you know, it's these are important people. They made contributions, but once you publish your contribution is made, right? Like once you've made the discovery is made. Um,
yeah, they're not
yeah,
going to knock out
yeah,
Iran's nuclear program. I think that's
yeah.
I think
But
they're not going to.
can they cause the collapse of the state by
That's more of a question than can they
yeah.
defeat the nuclear program. I think that the hardened, I mean, you'd
Hmm.
have to have full participation by the Americans. It would have to be after a long drawn out bombing campaign before you
Hmm.
would even be realistically hitting the nuclear installations in a way that would be disrupting the program. I feel like that doesn't seem like the actual goal here. The goal does
Yeah,
seem like it's
state
to
collapse.
destroy
Which
the.
I don't know. I don't know how fragile. I don't think they're fragile like that. I don't think they were just awaiting some airstrikes to collapse, but who knows?
No,
Maybe
and
they.
especially not when you get the country rallying around
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that might not have under different circumstances because they see it as an existential threat.
The only other military thing I wanted to note, and we can move towards wrapping up, but it's very interesting that there's there's this air defense complex that Iran has built, um, that's doing battle all the time with whatever the Israelis are sending. But like they don't have these dog fights in the air. They're not um they're not they don't have like a plane. And it's like I watched a video yesterday where somebody was saying, "Oh man, it would sure be nice to have, the latest Chinese plane or the latest Russian plane to be able to like chase the Israelis out," which they can't do. But it's also like they made this decision, Iran, to not bother. Like it was a necessity. I think the Americans made sure they couldn't get planes or plane parts or anything. And so they really just said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. And so they have these everything they do put was into missiles and drones and standoff weapons where they don't bother sending the plane with the pilot, training the pilots. And in a way, it's kind of freeing. Like it's enabled them to be the best in this new generation of methods that they're actually ahead of the West in.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how that holds up. I think there's a lot of BS. Like I think a lot of Israel's doing a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
lying
yeah. They're
right
making
now.
it look. What they've done is they've done a lot of Instagrammable. damage.
Yeah.
Uh,
And made it seem like, like there was the New York Times story that they made it seem like Iran's plan was to launch 1,000 ballistic missiles in the first minute,
well,
and Israel like
foiled them.
forced them to only do a few hundred, and that's just not true. They
Hmm.
wouldn't use that significant portion. I mean, it's not clear how many missiles they have, and of course we always hear these estimates for
Yeah.
Hezbollah and for the Palestinians, and they're always so wrong. But the understanding is like somewhere between 2 and 3,000 of their high grade
Hmm.
ballistic missiles. So they were not going to launch 1/3 of them in the first minute of the war. That's just a lie that the
Yeah.
New York Times just
Made
writes
up.
and then has
Yeah.
multiple fact checkers and editors just be like, yeah, put that in there. It just, yeah, just a lot of BS. And there's no Yahya Sari, and there's no Abu
Yeah.
Ubaidah. They
Yeah. There
they
never was. They're not like that.
no,
That's not they're culturally not like that, right? You
no,
don't
it's
have that in Russia either. You
yeah.
know, you have Zakharova and Lavrov, but it's not the same. Uh, it's not
Yeah,
the,
they don't have a spokesperson that's giving us that. And this is the thing, is this the devastating loss of Nasrallah, because
hmm.
this was the moment where Nasrallah would give a speech, put everything into perspective, and kind of do that messaging that is just, you know,
Yeah.
absent right
But that
now.
was his time, and he said they're deterred, he said, why haven't they done it? And it's because they're deterred, and then they went and did it. So it's like, yeah, there's something about this, what the Israelis have been able to get away with,
The
that has
genocide.
surprised
It's the
everybody.
genocide. They
Yeah.
didn't realize that they would be allowed in front of the entire world
Yeah.
to brick by brick genocide the people of Palestine while the whole world watched. And if they knew that
Mostly
they could
helped.
do that, this war would have looked totally different. They
Yeah.
didn't know that they were going to get genocide 2.0, 3.0.
Yeah.
And now it's like basically the fifth level of genocide right now where that's going on. And I mean, Netanyahu said that it was the Nasrallah assassination that's when they were like, we can do
We
anything.
can do anything.
Yeah. And the Nasrallah assassination came at the end of the 3.0 genocide, where they were marauding all around Gaza, destroying Shifa Hospital, and
Hmm.
doing the things for the second and third time.
Hmm.
And then they were allowed to do the general's plan in the fall
Hmm.
of last year,
Right.
where it looked like the whole world was going to let them ethnically cleanse all of northern Gaza.
Yeah.
Um, and that's when he said he put this plan in place. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's Israel's running is a demented society that's running amok. And having towers in Tel Aviv be struck is like, it's really the first time in 618 days that people in Tel Aviv actually feel this war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how
And
long can they take it? That is the question.
yeah, and what can they do? What will they do out of not liking this feeling?
I mean, I think that the Haaretz story is right. If there were planes out of
Yeah.
Tel Aviv right now, the airport would be flooded with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, there's not going to be planes for a while, I don't think. This war is going to go on for a while,
I think we're I think we're definitely measuring it in weeks, if not
minimum.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a 2-day version of,
Well, 2 days are over
yeah,
already.
5-day version of this.
All right, well, we'll be here.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
We're really not. So hang in there, everybody. We'll probably be back. I don't want to say this, but we might have to come during the week.
Well, I don't want to say that we're going to do a show, but I don't know. Like the plan
How
of
I don't know how
having
we
two
can
weeks
avoid
of
it.
not shows was planned before this.
I see.
And it's yeah.
Well, yeah, if there maybe we'll need to convene during the week. And if we do, we will. Otherwise, hang in there for a week, everybody. Seems very doubtful that we're gonna last a week without coming back on here, but we'll see. All right.
See you guys.